Hi y'all, welcome to my new tech tool journey featuring the tech tool, the Osmo. My name is Erin Arnold and this presentation is for ITED 8300. So as I said, my name is Erin Arnold and the tech tool I chose to explore is Osmo. I chose Osmo because the teacher who utilized the classroom that I'm presently in before me left her closet full of exciting things for me to have, and the Osmo was one of those things. And unfortunately, I just hadn't had the chance to explore it due to the busy start of the school year. So this assignment was the perfect opportunity for me to do just that. Throughout this presentation, I will be explaining my experience with the tool based on the guidelines outlined in our project. I utilized Osmo with my kindergarten class primarily in a small group setting. Discovery and implementation. I discovered Osmo in my closet as I was moving into my classroom this summer. Prior to finding it, I had never heard about it. I was very fortunate that all needed components were readily available for me. Osmo is a significant investment, and if I had not found it, I wouldn't have otherwise been able to utilize this tool due to its cost. Since I teach kindergarten, I thought Osmo would be a beneficial tool to enhance student engagement with phonics, number sense, and creative thinking. My exploration. When I first got Osmo, I was intrigued but a bit unsure of how all the pieces work together. I spent time exploring the different apps and experimenting with the physical components, figuring things out through a lot of trial and error and Google searches that were incredibly helpful, leading me to YouTube videos that gave me tutorials, setup guides, and troubleshooting tips to better understand how to use the tool effectively in the classroom. Over time, I became more confident navigating the platform, and now I feel comfortable integrating Osmo into small group learning activities. On the next slide, I'll begin my evaluation, and I'm going to show you a brief video of how to set up Osmo, what pieces you need for certain apps, and how to go through the application process. My evaluation. Osmo is an interactive learning tool that combines physical manipulatives with digital gameplay, making it ideal for hands-on, small group learning environments, especially in early childhood and elementary classrooms. It works well for teaching foundational skills like spelling, math, and problem solving by engaging young learners, typically ages 5 through 10, so elementary school, through tactile and visual activities that boost cognitive engagement and make learning fun. However, Osmo might not work well in distance learning or large group settings since it lacks peer-to-peer communication features and progress tracking tools, limiting its use for accountability and data-driven instruction. Key concerns include limited data export options, minimal learner accountability features, and the need for teacher facilitation to maximize its potential. These are important to consider before investing in Osmo as a classroom tool. Hey y'all, I wanted to quickly show you the Osmo. So right here I have my iPad, the reflector, and the base. This all comes with the Osmo base kit. You would have to purchase this or possibly ask for funding from your school, but it is kind of expensive. You don't have to set it up an account, but you can. I'm going to skip it because this is a student iPad and I don't want them to be able to access my account. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the camera. And I do need an additional piece, the tanagram tiles that I have right here. You also have to purchase this separately. So it is kind of expensive. That I select that I have the reflector. And these are things you would have to do every time you enter an app. There are multiple apps that go along with Osmo. So this is only the tanagram. There are letters, there are sighted apps, there are shape builders, etc., etc. I'm gonna hit junior because I have little babies. I have kindergarten, and it shows them what shapes to use in order to build the picture. So for this particular picture, I need the triangle shape. And this would also reflect. It should be reflecting right here. The triangle and the yellow square. And it noticed that I did it correctly. So it's using this to see what I've done. Okay, now I need this and this. These two triangles to put together to make a square. And I'm going to put it to the top so that the reflector can see that I have made it. Oh gosh, it's very specific. I put the blue on top and the red on the bottom, and it was saying it was incorrect, so. There we go. All right, here's how you use the Osmo. There are so many other different types of apps that you can use, so I'm going to really briefly show you. On this iPad, I'm just going to type in Osmo, and you can see there's Osmo in Space, Tanagram Classic, the one that we just did, Shape Builder, Stories, Osmo World, Coding Jam, Osmo Monster, and Mind Races. So a lot of different things that you can do with the Osmo. Thanks for watching. Hey y'all, all right, my curation continued. I used Osmo in a small group setting to support early literacy and numeracy skills, primarily through interactive games like words, numbers, and reading adventure. I excuse me. I explored the tool hands-on first, experimenting with its physical tiles and camera-based interface. Then I moved on to integrating it into the classroom. So I wanted to use what I had in the closet, the tactile pieces, to see how it went before I formally introduced it to students. Through trial and error and help from Google searches, I learned how to set up and guide students in using the tool effectively. The games encouraged engagement and independence, while I facilitated learning and differentiated instruction based on group needs. Osmo supports learning by making abstract concepts more concrete. Students can manipulate physical objects while receiving immediate digital feedback, which keeps them actively engaged. In terms of universal design for learning, Osmo addresses the UDL principle of multiple means of engagement by offering game-based learning that motivates students through play. It also partially addresses multiple means of representation as students received information visually, auditorily, and kinesthetically. However, its limitations in accessibility and personalization mean that it doesn't fully meet the multiple means of action and expression principle, particularly for learners who need assistive technology or individualized content adaptations. My curation continued. When I first introduced Ozma, it mostly met my expectations in terms of engaging students and making learning more interactive. I expected it to be a fun hands-on tool to support foundational skills, and it definitely delivered in that regard. Students were eager to participate and seemed genuinely excited to use the games during small group rotations. However, I also anticipated it might offer more in terms of progress monitoring or customization for specific learning needs, and those areas fell short. While the gameplay was smooth and intuitive once it was set up, the lack of built in student profiles and detailed data reports made it harder to use Osmo as a progress monitoring tool. The learners responded positively overall. They loved the interactive elements and often asked when they could use Osmo again. What worked well was the physical manipulation of pieces combined with the immediate feedback from the app, which really helped reinforce skills in a playful way. What didn't work as well was the initial learning curve, especially since I teach kindergarten, who needed repeated modeling and support to use the tool independently. If I could change anything, I would spend more time upfront modeling the games and possibly pair students for peer-to-peer support. I'd also be more intentional about aligning specific Osmo activities with my learning targets rather than relying solely on the preset game structure. I also considered using this as an early finisher station because it is so enjoyable to students. To successfully integrate Osmo into my classroom, I had to be intentional about organizing the space and rotating students in small groups. Since Osmo requires physical components like an iPad, a base, and game-specific pieces, I set up a dedicated station during workshop time. I made sure students knew how to handle the materials properly and often stayed nearby to model usage and provide a little tech support. Managing time was key, so we utilized our small group timer and the schedules that change daily based on the student's rotation. Because it's a hands on tool, it worked best in a small group setting with clear expectations and teacher facilitation. One major consideration is the cost. Osmo is very expensive. Beyond needing an iPad, most kits range from $100 to $300, and a full classroom set can be cost prohibitive for many schools or even individual teachers. While the tool does offer multimodal engagement, accessibility can still be a challenge for students who need one-on-one support for certain learners. for students who need assistive technology or sensory accommodations. I had to make modifications like adjusting sound or providing one-on-one support for certain learners. If you're considering using Osmo, visit their website to explore pricing, tutorials, and support resources. You'll find helpful YouTube videos like walkthroughs and forums for troubleshooting that I also use. But the upfront investment means it's not feasible for most classrooms unless you have solid tech funding or grants. So it's best used in a structured, well-managed learning environment. All right, my adoption. After exploring Osmo and using it in my classroom, I do see potential for incorporating it in an ongoing basis, particularly in small group or, like I said, as an early finisher station. Its interactive, hands-on approach keeps young learners engaged and makes foundational skills more fun. However, due to the high cost of both the physical kits and that they require iPads, I would likely use Osmo selectively rather than as a core instructional tool. We in my district are very fortunate to have one-to-one technology, but I know that's not the case for a lot of districts. It's best suited as a supplemental station in a well-resourced classroom with time for teacher-guided instruction and management. For educators or schools considering Osmo, I recommend it primarily for early childhood or primary grades K through 2, where tactile learning is essential. However, effective use requires specific resources, including iPads, the Osmo base, game kits, and ongoing access to replacement parts, all of which can add up very quickly. Schools would need budgetary support or grant funding to make Osmo feasible at scale. Additionally, professional development, should focus on initial setup. Sorry, my contact fell out. Additionally, professional development should focus on initial setup, integration into existing curriculum, classroom management strategies, and training on differentiation within Osmo games. Teachers would also benefit from learning how to align Osmo activities with standards and how to scaffold usage for diverse learners, including those needing sensory accommodations or extra support. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch my presentation, and I hope that if you're able to utilize Osmo, that you take advantage of it, and I hope you have a great week. Thank you so much. Bye.